started. So look at the solid guy. So one of the things, as I was saying, when you start a business and you have traction, you start to grow. What happens often is that you're trying to expand, 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 and then you hit this wall. And that wall sometimes it seems so difficult to cross that some businesses actually get stagnant over time. So hopefully this evening we can have a little talk story session about this thing called scaling. So I like to start to share my screen and start a presentation. Let me start at the top. Let me get this all screwed up. Can you all see the screen? I'm scrolling slowly, as he said. Can you all see the slides?
Looks good, Dak.
Good, great, fantastic. All right, so let's talk about this thing called scaling. But before I do that, those of you who haven't been to one of these sessions, we always like to introduce you to our chancellor who has a message for you. So I'm going to run a short video from our chancellor, Carlos Penaloza. When I do a video, it's going to be a two-step process if you haven't been on a session before. So again, I'm going to go ahead and start the video and start the two-step process. And hopefully, yep, did not get that down. All right, Carlos. There you go. There we go.
The Wahiawa Value-Added Product Development Center adds to the educational mission of community colleges. Hawaii has celebrated success in agriculture, and we want to support local agriculture by investing and growing the Made in Hawaii, Produced in Hawaii, and Processed in Hawaii brands. Resources available on site will support local entrepreneurs in improving their products and business models, reducing the need for businesses to leave Hawaii to become viable. We offer programming curtailed around value-added businesses, equipment that are unique to Hawaii and typically too expensive for small businesses. Provide consulting and know-how to help improve products, reduce cost of production, and increase shelf life, all critical to the success of local products and are now available in Central Oahu for statewide access through the community colleges. When we look at facilities that can help support scaling products, bringing new products to market, there's very few in Hawaii. Equipment like our hyperbaric chamber that will help stabilize shelf life for products. These are things that our entrepreneurs need so that their products can get into the store, so that their products can make that trip across the ocean. Keeping businesses local, supporting local agriculture, and strengthening local entrepreneurial pipelines are core to the mission of the Wahiawa Value-Added Product Development Center and the community colleges. I would love for you to learn more about what we are doing here by looking at our website and joining us for a tour so that we can continue strengthening Hawaii's local economy through agriculture.
So I know some of you have been up to the Senate, but if you haven't, I hope you schedule a tour. Oh, he doesn't want to go. Excuse me. Let me get this guy up and running again. So our chancellor is very verbose, and so often likes to go over. So let's go back and get you all in the right spot. So hopefully, some of you who haven't been at the center make a quick visit, and we're always welcoming new people. And you can see the facilities live. So let's get into this evening's topic of scaling. I'm gonna pop the slides up and start to talk. So what I like to do is I like to have conversations. So if you have a question, you just ask it. You don't have to wait till the end, till I'm done, because I like this the sessions to be lively and also interactive. So Understanding the beachhead marketing for scaling your business. So the term beachhead marketing for some of you may be new. So we're going to talk about in terms of scaling a business. If you're running a business currently, and some of you are, I understand, are successful, you've already scaled, and then some of you are in the startup area and you're trying to scale. And at some point, you grow your business, and then for some reason, it sort of stalls a little bit. So this evening, we're going to try and explore ways in which to get that stall up and going. And so I'd like to start off with this quote. Think big, start small, then scale, fail fast. This is from the retired Chipotle chairman. And it's one of the things that we often talk about at the center is, fail fast, learn more. And so this is what this is talking about. In this case, those of you who have started a business or want to start a business, you think big. And the idea is let's start small. And then when you're ready, let's scale and scale in a very intuitive way, a very systematic way. So it's all has to do with the three stages of a startup. And so the three stages of problem solution fit. This is when you're looking for a problem that you want to solve. All businesses exist to solve a problem. And so in this first stage, as you start a business, you're trying to ask and answer these three questions. What problem are you solving? Who are you solving it for? And what is your solution? Sometimes we refer to as a minimal viable. At this very early stage, you're trying to find out what specific problem do I want to solve, and who do I want to solve it for, and how I'm going to solve it. And this has to do with your business and your product. So this early stage is where you have a lot of searching, a lot of the trial and error. Then you hit the second stage, which is product market fit. Product market fit is when the solution and your product, your minimal viable product, actually matches. And when it matches, what you have is a set of three questions. Is your solution valuable and wanted? Next one is, will they pay for it? And the more important, will they want it and pay for it again? And in this second stage, product market fit, this is where you start to get some traction. And the third stage of a startup is the scale. And the scale is really simply, how do I move beyond a startup and how do I accelerate growth? And so when we look at it from a more practical standpoint, this is how they translate. The problem solution fit is you're learning and you're pivoting and you finally enter the marketplace. When you have McKenna snuck in there. In the second stage, product market fit, what you have, was my slides, he decided not to work. Okay, let's get this done. All right, there you go. There's customer acceptance in your product, and they actually say, oh yeah, I really like what you've come up with. You're solving my problem. And you start to get early growth, and that early growth usually starts very small, and you're very anxious, but suddenly, wow, you get more and more customers to accept it, and you get traction. And now you're in a comfortable state where you say, wow, this is great. You make more product, you sell more of your product, you satisfy more of your customers, and more people are coming back. So you get good traction. Then you say to yourself, I think I have the opportunity to scale, to sell a lot of these products. And so in the scale, three things might happen. You have rapid expansion, or you may have stagnation and even closure of your business. So you might say, well, dang, why is that scale part? Have three components: the rapid expansion, which is the scaling part, but then you have stagnation, and then you have possible closure. And so let's take a look. Let's take a really cursory look at why businesses fail to scale. Again, if you get any questions, just yell out, "Hey, I got a question," and we'll all stop and talk sorry about it. So what's happened is that the first one is called premature scaling. They attempted to sell more products into more market segments to grow the business. And we call that spray and pray technique, which means you can sort of buckshot it all across and hoping to hit a group of people who says, yeah, I really like the product, and so I'm going to buy more. And so a couple of things occurs at that point. The more you sell under these conditions, the more expenses are you going to incur. And it's because you're growing at an inefficient rate. So you're producing more product, you're attempting to sell into more markets, and so your advertising goes up, your delivery cost goes up, every production cost goes up. And so one of the things occurs in this process of spray and pray in a rapid succession is your cash flow becomes really tight due to these additional expenses. So the insufficient funds causes you to stop certain aspects of your business, which sometimes relates to compromised quality. As you try to build more and more product at rapid rates to fill what you think will be additional demand, sometimes the process causes the quality of your product to be compromised. The other one is really more fatal, is that what got you customers is now being neglecting your customers because you're looking at different places in which to sell. So what attracted people to you originally, because you're looking at different areas, you're spreading your vision, your strategy, and planning too wide, and you may start to lose your current customers who got you started. And that all results in possibly your growth being stagnant or even your reversal of growth, which eventually, if that isn't stopped, your business is closed. So this is, again, what we call premature scaling, where you have some initial positive traction and you think, well, I can get more and more, and you chase more and more markets, trying to sell more and more products. And actually, when you're doing that, you may be undermining your particular business. So let's take a look at the difference between growing and scaling a business. Growing a business is actually growing revenue, but at the same time, as I said, you're using more and more resources and increasing costs to grow that revenue. And at some point, it becomes counterproductive. More sales, great expenses, slowing profitability. So scaling is somewhat different. Scaling is growing a business revenue without incurring substantial growth and resource usage and costs and increase. So scaling a business is more than selling more products to more segments. So this is the difference between growing and scaling. Again, excuse me, yell out if you have a question or two about this concept of growing and scaling. So this is where startups and early success, if not fully understood, could cause you to really reverse your traction. There's a second reason why business sometimes fail to scale. And this is something we refer to as failure to cross the chasm. The chasm is often referred to, and I've heard it many, many times, seen it many, many times. The chasm is often referred to where businesses go to die. And you might say, well, that's a harsh term. That's pretty harsh saying that's where the businesses go to die. Maybe my business will go to the die. It's really something that I'd like you all to sort of understand when you're trying to scale, especially if you're in that startup mode right now and you're trying to scale. It all has to do with this diffusion of innovation concept. Now, when I say diffusion of innovation, I'm also referring to new products, new businesses, something that has to do with the sales. So in this scheme, what you're looking at is you're looking at the 5 categories of types of customers within a market segment. And we're going to deal with each one of these. And what we want to do, what I want to do, is help you sort of maneuver as you're trying to scale into larger markets, to maneuver using this particular concept to get you to actually into the larger markets where you can actually scale efficiently and effectively. So we look at these 5 areas: innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards, and the chasm. So let's take a really close look at each one of them. And I'm going to show you a quick video to sort of explain how this particular system works, and then we'll come in and take a real deep look at it. So let me pop in the video, and then we'll talk story about after the video. Again, it's a 2-step process. Okay, you should be seeing the video soon, right now. Yell out if you don't.
Have you ever noticed that some people adopt new products or behaviors sooner than others? In 1962, Everett Rogers, a professor of rural psychology, developed a theory called the diffusion of innovations to explain this phenomenon. Rogers found that individuals within any society fall into one of 5 different adopter groups based on how early or how quickly they adopt an innovation. Rogers' theory tells us that if you want to promote the widespread adoption of a new behavior like these, you need to market to each adopter group differently, using distinct communication channels and messages. Let's look at each group to find out more. The innovators are a small but important group because they are always the first to learn about and adopt an innovation. They are risk-taking, adventurous, and like being on the cutting edge. The innovators are responsible for introducing innovations to the larger population because they share their experiences with their friends and communities. The early adopters are also a small, forward-thinking group and are often highly respected as opinion leaders. Their endorsement of an innovation plays a key role in what we call crossing the chasm, which is when the adoption of an innovation bridges the gap between the trendsetters and the majority. About 2/3 of people in a population fall into either the early or late majority groups. The early majority take time to make decisions. They will observe others' experiences and will only adopt the product once they are convinced it has real benefits and that it is the new status quo. The late majority are more resistant to change, though they are very responsive to peer pressure. They want innovations to be very well tested and widely used before they will risk trying it. Finally, the last group to adopt a new product or innovation is called the laggards. Laggards are highly resistant to change, and they also can be hard to reach with marketing campaigns because they often have very minimal exposure to media. Laggards wait until an innovation is completely mainstream before they adopt it, and in some cases, they never do. Think of some global innovations in recent years. Social media, for example, spread very fast and many people adopted it within a few years. Other innovations, such as the use of solar power, spread much more slowly and may take decades to reach widespread adoption. So the next time you're promoting a new product or behavior, consider the theory of diffusions of innovations and tailor your communication channels and messages. This will improve your chance of catalyzing widespread adoption.
So these are the 5 categories. And so right now, I'm going to, any questions about what you've just seen in terms of that short video? No? So if not, let me go ahead and explain. Let's see. Just make sure I got you all. Let's go back to this. Yep, we don't want this guy.
Hey, Doug.
Yeah,
I actually do have a question about that.
sure.
So he touched briefly on the idea of tailoring your messaging to the different groups.
Uh-huh.
Could you explain a little bit more about like what kind of messaging is fitting for each group?
Oh, great. Yeah, so I'm glad you asked because that's where I'm taking you all right now. And
Oh, great.
so I wanted to take a little deeper look. So is it Callie? I
Yep.
want to take,
Yeah, that was me.
yeah, I take a little deeper look at each of the categories, and then we'll start to tie it all up in terms of the messaging. So let me share my screen to get that slide up. But I can't seem to get this video guy up. So let's try this again. I'm gonna start from the. I'm gonna scroll all the way down past that slide. Okay. So let's scroll. Sorry. All right. So let's take a look at that first group, the innovators. They're the first to enter a market. They're 2.5% of a market, a very small group of very enthusiastic people who always want to be the first to experience. They're eager to try new ideas, product, services. So they'll show up. These are the people who, when they introduce a brand new iPhone on a Wednesday, they will show up on a Sunday afternoon, evening to get space to be the first one in the store. So they're eager and they're risk takers. They really want to be the first. They want to try it. Even if trying it has a setback, they don't care. It's going to go ahead and get it. So the whole idea behind this group is they want to be the first to experience new ideas, new products. So whenever you start a business or a new product, you have a group of people who will actually come and say, they're excited to try it. Those are the innovators. Again, these are the people when you introduce an iPhone saying, come on Thursday, they show up Sunday before to get their first spot so they can get that first product. The second group is more important. It's called the early adapters. They're 13.5% of the market segment. They're the second group to adopt, but they're a little less risk-taking. They actually appreciate things that are new, but a lot more cautious. So one of the things, this group is super important when you're talking about scaling. The reason is that they're cautious. They want to make sure the product works the way it's supposed to work, and they'll only adopt or buy a product when they're sure it's going to work. But they're also visionary, so they're willing to take slight risks to say maybe I'll go ahead and try it. And if they're successful, the experience is successful, they bought the product, they experienced great satisfaction with the product, then they're really, really satisfied. And one of the things about this group is they like to share their thoughts and opinions with others. They consist of a very strong opinion leadership group or influencer group. So this group are less risk taking, but they want to try something new. And if it works out, they're going to go ahead and spread the word over and over again. The next group is early majority. This is 34% of the market. This is the large market. This is where you scale. This is where you can really expand your business in a rapid rate. But you have to get to this group. One thing about this group, they're called the mainstream group. They're very pragmatic, which means they want to be sure it works. They need strong assurance that whatever problem they have and the solution that you're providing in terms of the product or service is going to work. And they take longer to adopt the product or decide to buy because they're looking at a lot of research and really taking a hard look at it. So should I buy it? Should I not? And they go back and forth, back and forth. But to scale, you need to start to acquire the people within the early majority. So again, this is really cautious people. This is where the scaling process not the growing process that we talked about, but the scaling process is going to start. The next group is called the late majority. This is the second half, the 34.5%, same size as the early majority, but they're super skeptical. I mean, they're so skeptical that a product has to be really, really in the market. It has to be proven over and over again that it is going to work. And once that proof is provided, it's almost like, okay, well, go ahead. But they're going to be really at the really late stages of a product introduction. It may take heavy persuasion to get them to adopt. So one of the things with these two groups is that they account for 68% of the market, which is a large amount of people, a large amount of money, a large amount of sales to be had if you can access into the early majority to start. The last group is the laggards. I won't spend too much time with them. The reason is that they're 16% of the market. They're super resistant to anything that's new products, new ideas. And so at some point, they may adopt, but the problem is that at the point of adoption, that product may have already become obsolete. So, and sometimes they never really adopt. So this is an area in which most marketers don't even bother to look at. So for those four areas, it's really important. And the last group is the last thing we'll talk about is the chasm. This is what stops growth from happening and causes stagnation or even failure of a business. So let's take a look at that. And we'll start to talk, how do we cross the chasm? So the early market is really your stage one product solution fit of the three stages of a startup. So you at this point, you've figured out how to get your product in a solution fit. And now you get
hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. Stop my video. Okay, what's going on?
Oh, we just got Kobe's phone working.
Oh, good.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you was talking to me.
What are you guys doing?
Hold on.
Hey, Michelle, is that you? Your mic is on. Sorry. So anyway, so this early adopter stage, 13.5% of the market, this is your stage two, product market fit. This is where you have a product that is solving a problem and that market is actually accepting it at a growing rate. So you have traction. Stage two is the scale. You can see the difference in terms of size of the market. You got to get there. But one thing occurs though is you have this thing called a chasm. And if you can't cross the chasm, you can't scale. You can't get into the larger market. And so one of the things that is asked, so why is that chasm there? And let's see. I'm sorry, I was looking up this, admit somebody in. Somebody said, why is the chasm there? So we're going to take a look at that. So why does this chasm exist? It really has to do with differing mindsets. So the early adapters are enthusiastic, as I said, they're visionaries for the future. They want a product that can solve their problem, but they want to be a little bit risk averse. They want it to be sort of proven, but still, yeah, I'm going to get some faith in stuff that's not fully proven. But once you can go ahead and satisfy them, that group right there, then they're going to go ahead and start to really spread the word about it. The early majority, where you need to scale, are again very pragmatic. They're skeptical about new products and ideas. They require a complete solution. I mean, there's nothing else to add to it. This is it. When I buy this product or this service, this will solve my problem, and that's it. That's all I want. So this case is that will solve the problem, but they also want a solution that is better than any alternative before the app. So they have to be real sure this product will work to solve my problem, and there's nothing else better. So you can see the two mindsets. And that's one of the reasons why when we talk about different marketing messages, what got you to that early adopter stage is not going to get you into what the early majority is looking for. And so this is where we need to talk about how to shift that. So we'll also have to look at why it's important to jump that chasm. It's the differing market sizes. So the innovators and early adopters, this bunch of guys, they account for only about 18% of the market. And it's good enough if you're an early startup. It's suitable for early startup growth, but it's not going to sustain your business for very, very, very long. You need to get into a larger market, the main street market, and that can sustain accelerated growth. But again, what you don't want to do is you don't want to have growth at the same time incurring additional expenses. So when you start to look at this diagram, the TLF, you got to jump that chasm. Unfortunately, they don't. So to jump that chasm, you have to be sure to change the strategy. And this is where I'm taking any questions. I'm going to take you into an area in which we're going to take a look at ways in which to jump that chasm so you can gain access to the early majority, get larger shares, and still not run up huge expense bills. So any questions right now? You're good? All right, let's go. Yell out if I confuse you. So again, what we're looking at is this. Let's jump the chasm. How do we get from the early adopters into the early majorities? Because they have two different mindsets, two different groups of people buying products for similar reasons, but still very distinct behavior patterns to actually buy and acquire a product, especially when a new product. So let's take a look at how to jump that chasm. So the first thing that happens is the early adopters and early majorities don't speak. They don't enter. They're like in two different, it's like oil and water. They really, really don't mix or interact with each other on a normal basis. And the other thing is that early majority, the greater part of the market, that orange segment, they rely on they're looking for sure things. And so to secure this feeling that, yeah, I got a winner of an idea or a winner of a product, what they're going to do is they're going to rely heavily on recommendations and social proof that it works, and before adopting it. So they want to be super certain. So one of the things that happens is that those early adopters, they like to spread their opinions. They like to share their opinions. They like to be opinion leaders. They're the ones that say, I had this dinner at this great restaurant. You got to try it. So I'm sure you all had people like that. They say, well, I went to this restaurant. It's fantastic. You got to go and try it. I really like it. And so this early adapter group is willing to spread success stories for a new product. And the early majority is seeking information about new products. So this is where there is a crossing. The first crossing of the chasm is when the early majority is seeking new types of information to confirm whether they should buy or not buy a particular new product. And the early adapters are going to be the ones who are going to be confirming it or not confirming it based on their experiences. Lost anybody right now? So this is the first meeting of the two groups. So how to cross it, you do now have to change your market strategy and sales strategy. The early market, which is these guys. Oh, sorry. Let's go back. Let's go back. The early market, the Main Street group, the early market has a different criteria for acquiring. So when you start to look at how am I going to change my messaging? How am I going to change my strategy? You have to look at what that early majority is looking at. And what they're really looking for is a complete proven solution. It means the product that they buy has to be complete. Nothing to be else to be added on. No, nothing else that will say, oh, maybe I need to add something else. They want a complete proven solution. It also has to confirm or be implied it is the best solution to their problem, given no other. I mean, it has to be the problem solver. It can't be second or third. It has to be the problem solver. And they're going to be seeking solid, proven recommendations. Proof it solves their problem. Again, this is done through the recommendation of the early market, but in your marketing, you start to change your messaging because in attracting that early market, especially the early adopters, you also say this is new and improved and try it, this is exciting. Now you can't go to the major market and do the same thing. And this is what happens a lot. What got you to that first stage of success, sometimes you think you can take it and get to the next stage, it's not going to work. So what you do, you now have to change your messaging into messages and strategies that says this is the answer, this is the solution. I can prove it, I can show it to you. And this is the type of messaging shift that you need to do to get a foothold into the early majority, to get your foothold into a scale. That's the major messaging change and strategy change. You go from exciting new to proven solution. And we're going to talk a little bit more how to do that. So any questions on that shift in marketing and sales strategy? Good. All right. So this is where the beachhead strategy comes into play. Excuse me. Whenever I talk a long time, I get a little cough coming up. So somebody said, what's the beachhead strategy? This is a very prevalent tactic in scaling. So a beachhead market is a narrow market. It's a really narrow market segment that a company focuses on to establish a foothold within a market area. So you might think, well, if I want to expand, why should I focus small? And this is why the beachhead market works often, is that if you try to attack an entire market, that early majority as a whole, you will be actually using more resources than you need to expand into it. And I'm going to explain that in the strategy itself. So let's take a look at the strategy. So the idea is you're going to focus on a very narrow area of that market. So the strategy begins, so it focuses its resource on a small niche segments, very small a slice of that market within a market they want to expand into. Excuse me again. The next step is that the company will leverage one of their products to capture that segment, as being the best solution in that niche segment, and drive competition out. This is one of the things that makes this strategy important, is that it will help capture a very specific, even though small, a very specific group of people within a market and capture them and drive competition out of that segment. So it becomes their market. They own it. The next step is to dominate the small segments. And what you want to do is produce the product to become the choice and brand leader in that market. So when you look at that small, so you might think, well, that's counterintuitive. If I want to get to a larger market, why do I have to look at a smaller one? And the idea behind the beachhead is if you can secure that small market, so this is mine, my brand and my product owns it, it's going to eventually leverage that product superiority, brand superiority, so you can then expand out into other parts of that market. So this is the idea behind the beachhead strategy, to get to get a slice and own it so that you have a foothold in that larger market. So from that dominant position, that business expands to larger segments with other products on their brand and product strength and recognition. Again, once you have established your product brand, product quality, a service quality, all of those things that confirm to that early majority that you are the people, the brand to do business with, you now have a foothold, and you can start to expand out to other product categories. So its rapid expansion is accelerated by word of mouth and social interaction. This is the part that's really important. A lot of people think that if I want to expand, I'm going to have to spend a lot of money on advertising and promotion. Not true. Once you get into your brand, even though it's a small position, once that brand becomes very solid, word of mouth will go ahead and accelerate acceptance of the brand and accelerate acceptance of the product itself, as well as the business that's associated with. So what happened is that you're having rapid expansion of your product sales, which hopefully is expanding your profitability, but you're not incurring a lot of additional expenses like major advertising, major promotion, that kind of expenses. So this is where we talk about scaling to drive revenue upwards without increasing your expenses. This way, you have a really fast accelerating growth that is also going to be very profitable. And the last thing is continuously improve the product by listening to your customers. Once you get in there, you can't just leave it the same. You have to come back and start to listen to what the customers are telling you and start to improve the product, improve service, improve processes, because your customers in this stage have gained trust in your product, in your brand, and so you have to make sure you never lose that particular affection for your product or your brand. So you have to keep improving it. So any questions right now about this beachhead strategy? No? Okay. So why use the strategy? First of all, it reduces risk. It's really less risky to actually secure a small niche of a segment than to attack the entire segment itself. So in this case, by securing this small sliver within a market and you holding that, you are more likely to be successful than if you try to attack the entire market, the entire early majority, which may cause you to actually have a high burn rate and go broke. It also builds momentum once you have success. So people like to follow successful people, and which means if you have a successful brand, people like to follow a successful brand. So it builds momentum. So if there's one product that you put in as the starter of your segment, once it gains traction, it will then help to go ahead and expand that same feeling, the same brand consistency, that brand promise to other products that you put out. So it helps to build momentum. What you need is this early success and build this trust with your consumers. It also refines product market fit. Product market fit is when your product is really matching up with your customers. But your customers are always evolving. They're changing. If all of you out there who runs a business, owns a business, has started a business, realize that over time, your customers will change on you. And if you change on you, you have to change to meet them. So by constantly looking and paying attention to the market segment, you realize I have to improve my product, I have to improve my services, I have to improve my processes, and that keeps the trust of your customers. And lastly, it facilitates expansion. From that dominant position on the beachhead, you can expand to larger segments, and it's actually used to leverage into the much larger early majority and later on into the late majority, which is huge amounts of market, huge amounts of people, huge amounts of profitability. So one of the things that might be on your mind is, so how do I find this market? So we'll start to end our talk story session this evening with how to find your beachhead market. And so one of the things you look at, you have to segment, which means you're going to look at that market that you look at, that early majority. You're going to look at that market and you're going to look at your early adapt, the ones that are giving you early success, and you're going to see what characteristics that's in that early market that you can transfer over and find in that larger market. And sure enough, if you start to do that segment, to break it down, you will find a group of people that you understand their problem. And you understand their problem so well, and then they are in desperate need to solve it. And you understand that I have the perfect solution for them because my early adopters have confirmed that I can solve that problem. Next thing you look through is that segment buying similar products. They may be buying similar products, but still yet they're looking for something better. This is one of the secrets to finding this group. You might say, well, they're buying some stuff, yeah, but if you introduce your product into them with the messaging that this is confirmed, this is the best, and do some demonstration, doing some blogging, and you find people reacting, saying, "Yeah, I really liked it. I was buying this, but now I want to buy yours." Then it really confirms that market that you're looking at, that segment you're looking at, is still searching for the perfect solution, and that's where you come into play to secure the segment by proving you are the best solution to the problem. Another thing you have to do is to understand your competition. You have to understand your competition so well because they're buying similar products from your competition now. But if you understand your competition, you can then explain and you can also demonstrate, you can prove that your product is superior to your competition because, and this is the important part, that you can actually have a solid demonstration, solid product, solid explanation of why your product is better than anyone else in your market. This is called differentiation. This other one is super important, and it's important in terms of today's market. This niche segment is able to communicate word of mouth. One of the strongest advertising possible is word of mouth advertising. So this group, again, would like to spread the word of successful products that solve their very important products, and they'll spread word of mouth in person or electronically. Now, electronic communications right now is huge, and so by spreading it word of mouth, social media is huge. They will spread this your brand and your product solution wider than you can ever imagine in buying ad after ad after ad. And this is what you would do to confirm it. Is communicate product superiority with proven performance testimony. This is where the early adopters can show, yep, well, I've used it, I've tried it, it's great, it's fantastic. Use a lot of testimonials, use a lot of product demonstration, use education versus persuasion. So in early marketing, you may have done persuasion. You may, in this case, when you're trying to scale, you may want to move away from persuasion into education, because they want to be informed. They want to be they want to know they're making the right decision. So moving from persuasion to education is really, really helpful in this early scaling effort. And so, yeah, we're about 6 minutes left. So one of the things that, you have any questions right now, just yell out if you have a question, or, hey, just yell it out before. Is everyone okay? Nothing confusing you out there? All right. All right. So you might say, "Oh, dang, that's a great theory. That's a great thing, but does it really work?" And so, being an early majority type, you might say, "Well, you got to prove it to me that this concept of the beachhead strategy work and how to scale using the beachhead, prove it to me." So this is my proof. Beachhead in action. I was at one point in my career, I was a vice president for Surf Pacific, who is known as the Toyota people. And so for many years, I was associated with the Toyota Motor Corporation. And so my proof is this: in 1955, Toyota Corporation produced what's called a Toyo Pet Crown, which is the above picture. It was first introduced in 1955, and it was the first Japanese car to enter the American market. And what they did was, that was the beachhead. That one car, the Toyo Pet, was the beachhead. And so they sold it, and it was mixed results, but they kept listening to the customer base. They kept listening to the American customer base, and they kept improving it. And in 1967, Toyota Corona captured, excuse me, in 1967, Toyota Corona captured the American compact car market. And they haven't relinquished that market since, even though there were strong competitors from Japanese and Korean competitors, as well as American competitors. They still hold that market. So when we talk about this beachhead strategy, beachhead concept, I often like to point to Toyota and their dominant position, especially in Hawaii, where the Toyota is so a dominant brand in terms of automotive. But they use that beachhead strategy to actually securing a almost a 38% market share in the state of Hawaii, which is just dominant and crushing to a lot of their competitors. So this evening, I started with a little phrase. I like to end this evening with another phrase. And it goes, if you have a great idea that translates elsewhere, then that's where scalability comes in. And that's where you actually start to make real money. And this is from Richard Van Veen, a very famous entrepreneur. And so this is, again, if you can work to scale, you will start to make real money. And hopefully, a little talk story session this evening will help you to, if you haven't scaled yet and are looking toward the scaling, hopefully this little talk story session will help you to try to look at a way to enter that market and really scale in a proper way so you make a lot of money. So if I know you're all a bit quiet out there, but if you want to have more talk story, I offer a limited one-on-one complimentary consultation available in person or in Zoom. And if you want to have a consultation with me, again, it's totally free. I call it Talk Story. Just notify the Whitehall Value Added Product Development Center, and we can schedule a time and date to Talk Story either in person or in Zoom. This is always open to anyone who attends my workshops. Also, if you haven't visited the value added centers lately, come by. We have always new things happening. It's a very exciting place to be. And the last thing I like to do is to say Mihia Aloha Pumihara, which is I thank you so very, very much for joining me this evening for my talk story. And with that, final. Anyone have any questions or concerns or what? Dang, I want you to explain this more. No? Well, if not, thank you so much for sharing your evening with me. I enjoyed talking story with you. Hopefully, you enjoyed participating in this evening. Hopefully, what we talked about was very helpful. And again, if you want more talk story session with me, just contact the center and we'll talk soon again. So mahalo so much. Have a great evening. Hope to see you soon at the center or elsewhere. Thank you. Bye.